Hello and welcome to the Mind Your Mind podcast. Mind Your Mind podcast is a podcast on mindfulness, spirituality, life, mind, universe, everything and nothing at all. My name is Ozan and as always, I am here with the amazing Henna. How are you, Henna?
Good, Ozan. And hello, everyone listening to us.
Great to see you again. It's always so nice on this beautiful day. Yesterday was full moon, actually.
Yes.
I have no idea how to relate to this one, but yeah, it's just there. I said it. There you go.
No. I am very much a moon person. I love full moon days. And yes, I remember yesterday was full moon. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome for that knowledge. Now let's go into the topic. I love today's topic. We will talk about creativity. Now this is a topic where it relates to everybody because no matter what kind of profession you do, you need to be creative in some situations, whether it's a problem or whether you need to find new innovative solutions. It's always needed, right? And sometimes it's pretty tough to get. For example, I was thinking that before the podcast, like what is creativity? And I realized it's just like women. You try to catch them, it runs away. Or you run away and they catch you. So it's something like that. Sorry for the terrible example. Now let's go over. So actually we discussed in the previous episodes about productivity and creativity. Mostly talked about the productivity. And what I want to start with is how productivity and creativity differ or how they relate to each other. What is the relationship between them?
Yes, that's one interesting point to discuss. And before that, as you said, we are doing this as a second episode on productivity and creativity. We have done one before, and it was much loved and appreciated by all the listeners. I think a lot is still left to be said on these two areas because these are very, very broad areas. Creativity is a vast thing, and productivity, almost every one of us has on top of their mind that how they can be productive. It's interesting to establish a link between these two terms, talk about how they are closely connected, how one is dependent on the other, and if at all. I remember there is one quote from a Chinese philosopher, Confucius. Confucius is a very popular Chinese philosopher, and he once said, learning without reflection is a waste, reflection without learning is dangerous. Now, this is a very widely known and accepted quote, and we all truly understand the meaning of it. I was just doing one simple experiment with this quote. I replaced the word learning with productivity and the word reflection with creativity. Now, the new quote becomes productivity without creativity is a waste, and creativity without productivity is dangerous.
That's deep.
Yes, and it makes a lot of sense. I think this is one apt sentence to describe the direct link between the two terms. When we are trying to be productive and we work really hard to produce something, but we do not work with creativity, productivity without creativity, it's always a waste. You do not get a very useful product in the end. And creativity without productivity can be dangerous because you're working too less, you're not productive enough. And in today's time, when we need things to be done, it's really important to have something to show all the time. So you can't just be thinking and ideating and be in that incubation zone for a very long period of time. So creativity without productivity can be dangerous. So I believe this is one way of linking these two terms. What do you think?
Actually, you made a great point there. It's a very deep point, actually, but I agree. So when I think of my job in engineering, designing is one thing, but making something happen, making a product out of an idea is a real challenge. There is this creative process where we just remove all the boundaries and the limits of what is possible and what is not. Once you remove that boundary, you can actually come up with a lot of ideas. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, but I think the harder part is actually finding ones that is actually possible and then making it happen afterwards. Like you have an idea, okay, I have a perfect idea for a product. How does it work? How can it work? Can we make it happen? And then after that, the basically you plan the whole process, you prototype, and you have to make calculations. Without one, another is useless. Without creativity, basically you're just doing what what something has been done before. Maybe you make it cheaper, maybe you make it a little shinier. It wouldn't make that big of a difference. But
Mhm.
creativity without the productivity part, as I said, actually making it work from the engineering terms, from the technical point of view, is just waste of time that you won't get any feasible product out of it. So you made a great point there, Confucius slash Henna.
Thank you. As I have said this, there was one another thing that came to my mind was, you know, we put too much pressure on people who have been or have shown creativity in some way earlier. So if we have witnessed creativity from someone, we regard them as a creative person. It's very strange, but writers and artists are all creative people in our heads.
I want to stop you right there. Is there such a thing as a creative person? Like, is it like depending on the personality? Is it from the genes, or what do you think it depends on?
Absolutely not. This is exactly the thing that I was coming to. That most of us think that creativity is a gene, but in fact, it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you need to work on. There is no such term as a creative person. Anyone and everyone can be creative. There is, there is in the Tibetan language, I was reading the other day, in the Tibetan language, there is no word which comes close to meaning creativity or being creative. The
Hmm.
uh, the closest one translates to natural.
Hmm.
If you want to be more creative, you just have to be more natural. And I think that explains it pretty much, that creativity is not a rare gift to be enjoyed by a lucky few. And it's not equal to being artistic. It is a natural part of human thinking and behavior. It is just another word for innovation.
Hmm.
And in many of us, what the challenge is that, in some of us, it is free and ready to use. So in some of us, maybe it gets blocked. But anything that is blocked can be unblocked. Anyone can tap into their creativity with practice, with experience, with, just stretching a little, just like you do with your muscles.
Hmm.
So I think we don't have to generate creativity from scratch. We just need to rediscover what we already have. We just need to rediscover the capacity to imagine, the capacity to build upon, the capacity to have a new idea. I think that is creativity.
Actually, just when you were talking, it you gave me an insight right there because it made me remind all the times which I was creative and all the times I tried to be, but I couldn't. And then I tried to realize, like, okay, it's really not genes. What is it? And one thing I could understand from what you're speaking is like forgetting the rules and limitations and what you saw before. For example, that was really useful for me, the forgetting the part, because if you try to be creative in one topic, which you read before, you saw before, you used before, it's really hard to think of something that is not related to that one. For example, I was having this issue when I was designing a whole new product for a robotic product, and I just couldn't come up with new ideas. I was just modifying the current designs, current innovations, which has been done before. And as soon as I just remove that from my mind and start from a scratch, not from the scratch like, okay, there is this product, but I want to make this. But start from the point of, I want to make this product, and I don't care about what has been done to do this before. I want to find a solution for this problem. Then I could find a whole new design actually. It just came to me. And the point was they're forgetting what I know how this is done before.
Yeah.
And that just enabled for me. And maybe you're right, actually, it can enable for everybody. And it is in everybody, but we limit it with all the knowledge we have and with our, let's say, blockage.
Yeah, the limitations that we make ourselves go through.
Exactly. And that's why the kids are usually the most creative ones among us, huh?
Right. Because they are keen observers. During childhood, everything is fascinating to us. Even a blooming flower and the color of the wall, everything is attractive to our eyes, to our senses.
It's all new.
Any, yes. So when you embrace something new, you get newer ideas. And when you embrace something, it automatically becomes new every time you embrace it. So I think we have lost, or maybe not, lost would be a very harsh word, but I think we have forgotten how to embrace things around us. Even the little things, the mundane little things around us. If we just start being a little more observant, I think we can open the doors to our creative minds.
Somewhere along the way, I think we just reduce this observation and embracing everything. And what we do is just we just accumulate everything we learn and
Mhm.
then put them into boxes and we accept, okay, this is what it is.
And we are running it on autoplay.
We
It's
are running
like,
an autoplay.
yes, not paying attention to it. It's everything is just going on its own because we have been there, done that, and we believe that it's going to produce the same outcome every time we do it. But is that so? No.
No, it's definitely not. I'm thinking, like for example, the kids draw some animals. They always draw some weird ones with a giraffe neck, elephant nose, and stuff like that, completely combined.
Hmm.
And now we don't do that because for us, like, okay, there's this dog and there's a giraffe. They are what they are, whatever. Yeah, we become kind of boring along the way.
That's one happy realization.
Never lose your child inside you.
Please take away this message if you are hearing us.
One thing we know is forgetting, basically removing the blockages, unlimits your creativity. What else can actually boost it?
So I was thinking that if we even go into the technical aspect of evaluating what is creativity, which I recently did, and I also posted on my page on Instagram and everywhere, on even on LinkedIn. There was this beautiful finding by Graham Wallace. He had broken down the process of creativity into four stages. He said that creativity involves preparation, then incubation, then illumination, and verification. So if you follow these four steps, you're going to produce something creative.
Hmm.
Now, if we carefully examine and look at these four stages, only two of these stages, that is preparation and verification, involves doing something. They
Hmm.
involve some action oriented activity. These are activity based things. Whereas the other two stages, incubation and illumination, they are about doing nothing.
Hmm.
So 50% of the process of creativity is about doing nothing. And that's a very beautiful insight that I gathered from this finding. And that brings me very close to making a point that a good leisure or a good rest automatically makes you creative.
I can relate to that, but I know what you mean. I've been in that situation so many times where you do absolutely nothing, just completely disregard the work and just enjoy your time, the moment, and then boom, the ideas come to you. But justification of that, when you need to be creative, is very hard. So what do you say to people who, like me, okay, in many situations, I need to find a creative solution to a problem. Doesn't exist before. I need to run my creativity free. How
Yes.
do I stop thinking? in this case and do nothing. Do you have a tip for that?
Well, I have my own unique ways of doing nothing, which absolutely are not about doing nothing. I'm doing something in that time when I am dedicating it to doing nothing, and it can be any simple activity that makes me contemplate. For instance, as I said in the previous episode as well, that doodling is something that I happen to do mindlessly when I'm
Mhm,
paying attention to something else. So if I'm on a phone call where I'm trying to pay attention, maybe I'm doodling side by side just so that my brain is working towards that call. When I'm not doing anything, when I'm not trying to focus anywhere, and I want to rekindle my mind, I usually prefer sketching flowers. Flower usually works for me. I don't know whether if you would relate to it. I would even recommend it as a relaxing exercise to those who don't know how to exactly, idle around.
mhm,
All of us, I think, suffer from this disease that we don't know how to sit idle. Here's a tip: drawing flowers can be an excellent way to bring some contemplation into your life, because the act of drawing makes you observe the bloom, and every flower has a different way of blooming.
mhm,
It has a unique way in which it blooms. The petals are unique, the colors are unique, the process itself is very unique. So when you're drawing it, you're actually making a blooming flower. This puts all your anxieties to rest in some way. It all my anxieties fly away as I lose myself in this observation that how beautifully it has bloomed.
mhm.
So when I'm putting colors into it, even if I'm not putting a color into it, I think the very process of drawing a flower with its petals, with leaves, with a stem, I believe that makes me contemplate. At the end of it, I have a free mind, which can now think anything, and of course a pretty little sketch.
I think that's flower is a woman thing. I see so many women just,
Yeah, and now I can relate to
especially
your woman thing.
when they're talking on the phone, they keep drawing some flowers or something. It's so interesting.
Yes,
I used to do that when I was a kid. I used to design cars, like draw different cars.
and see, you are doing that today as well.
Yeah, but now it used to be more fun.
So are there any unique ways in which you do nothing? I think it's very challenging to just sit and do nothing. I think it's very challenging to sit idle, absolutely idle, staring at the wall.
Especially if you have something to do.
Yes, it just makes you get into guilt,
Exactly.
and
That is what I'm talking about. So you have to do something. You know that you have to do something. It's like it happens to me sometimes. I know that if I get away from it,
hmm.
solutions will come. But then you have to solve something, and it waits there. It it sits in the back of your mind, and you have this guilt, right?
That is one thing that all of us are trying to find a solution to, that we all know the benefits of contemplating, sitting idle, and reflecting on ourselves. We all understand that creativity comes through these things when we give space to our mind,
Mhm.
when we do nothing for a while. But I think the biggest obstacle there is guilt. The guilt of having lots to do and not being able to do it
Exactly.
because your mind is not cooperating with you.
Yes. It's pushing you constantly, sending you reminders. Why are
But
you not doing something?
I think I found the answer for this somewhere in your book.
That's interesting.
Uh, I I read about how beautifully you had explained that stillness is the basis of all creativity. Once you pause, you observe, and you start feeling, it opens doors to things that maybe you have not even imagined before. What we have really forgotten is that all intellectual pursuits that happened traditionally, they were always reserved for the leisure class. When you're removed from work, when you're far away from work, not working, that is when you were made to think. That is when you were considered to be best to be receiving knowledge.
Yes,
The ancients thought of knowledge as mostly receptive, and we passively receive it through observing the world, because knowledge is something that needs space to breathe. It needs time for contemplation. Unless you reflect on what you are studying or reading, it always goes to waste. It is equivalent to not knowing. So even if you have read something, even if you have gathered that knowledge and you have not been attentive while the process was on, it is of no use.
exactly.
So that is why we need to free our mind, and before we can actually be receptive of some knowledge. And that was what we used to do traditionally. However, after the Industrial Revolution and over the years, we kind of forgot this process and we started conflating business with productivity. We started equating busyness with productivity. The worst outcome of that, or the byproduct of that, was the guilt with not working.
Exactly.
So I think the guilt is majorly associated with the aspect that we do not realize that real productivity happens when your mind works out of sheer curiosity, just like a kid. The curiosity element comes only when your mind is free to observe, to look around, to contemplate, rather than solving some purpose which is purely utilitarian.
Exactly. Yeah, this was kind of injected to us over the decades. Basically, this industrialization and revolution basically are half of our lives. They literally become work. Once we think of work, for many people, it means selling your time. You have to work for, let's say, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours every day, or even worse in some countries. And working is, okay, sometimes physical, but sometimes administration, whatever it is. But actually, a small part of it is creativity work that shapes our understanding. Being useful and being productive, what we think of it is not having leisure, not
Mhm.
doing nothing, in your words. Basically, working doesn't mean being creative, doesn't mean being productive. And we try to put this creativity in that working time as well. And it just doesn't work because it's clashing. For example, what is interesting is the change of industry now. We have industry 4.0 and robots start to do our jobs, all the repetitive jobs, let's say the physical jobs. That leads us to a place where we are more of a thinkers and less of a repetitive doers like we used to be. This change, what I see, started to be painful. We are resisting it. We are like, okay, the robots will steal our jobs, but actually they will give us more time to to be smarter, I think, because we will have more time for ourselves.
I think you make a very interesting point there, and that is exactly what was on my mind too. I really wanted to know and understand uh, how would we thrive alongside uh, artificial intelligence and the technology that is rampant now and fast replacing humans and their jobs. Is there a plus side to it, that it is letting us become more humans?
Definitely. I think it is definitely not human to spend most of your time doing some repetitive jobs. And what robots are taking over, it's not our jobs. It is the repetitive part that humans are not meant to do. And that would bring us to a space where we are creating more, we are becoming more human, and we are using more of our brain. For example, I used to work with industrial robots along with collaborative robots. Generally, they take care of this assembly, testing, quality, these kind of topics where humans don't need to do it anymore. And our kids will be smarter because they won't need to do those things. But what they will need to do is actual creation of work for the robots to do. For example, now we won't use the physical work. We won't have to work 10 hours per day.
Mhm.
But we will need to create an algorithm for the robots to work that they can't create for themselves.
Yes.
For example, you gotta tell robot what to do. It can only do what you say it to do, but it can't solve challenges. It can't
Mhm.
come up with a solution for an issue. It can't create something. It can't bring creative solutions to anything. That is still human job. We will never be fully automized. We will always need humans there because this is what the humans bring and this is what we are supposed to bring. And this is our basically difference from the artificial intelligence as per now, that our ability to think, lifting something is not advantage of humans. Robots can lift much more than you. Trust me. We don't need you to carry something heavy, but we need you to think because that is the difference between you and everything else, including the AI and all other animals out there, the ability to think and create something mentally. And I think this will lead the human's evolution to a next step where we will be much smarter and much creative. The speed of technology will increase so much, not because the AI is getting smarter, but humans are able to think clearer. They have more time to think. They have more leisure time, as you say. They do more of a nothing. They don't do 10 hours of work anymore. In the
Mhm.
future, we will do just a few hours of writing algorithm or coming up with solutions. And the robots will take care of the rest.
I agree. And I think this is very much in tandem to what we discussed just before this, the ancient wisdom of focusing on our innate human skills. And I think this would allow ample time for reflection, for skills like creativity and empathy. I think these are the skills that will make us stand out in the future, give us a competitive edge, and will be the key to staying relevant. And of course, to fuel these skills, we would need rest and leisure.
Exactly.
Because if we think about it, the always on mode, the state of being always on, always doing, is it does not go well with our biology as well. Our brains and body are not designed to be in the always on mode.
Hmm.
That is why we need to find ways to work that acknowledge our biological constraints. And I think this is going to be one area where this aspect would be relieved,
Hmm.
and we'll be able to focus more on the better things, the more human things like empathy and creativity, the innate qualities that we already have.
So become more human.
Yes. So we are definitely heading towards a future which is more creative, more emotional, cares more of about each other, is more empathetic. So I think if you have these qualities and if you are able to show these qualities around, it would help you stand out and give you a competitive edge. That's what I believe in.
I love what you just said. So basically, we are evolving to be human, to be more
Yes,
towards our own qualities. Basically, we were just suppressing those,
yes. It's like rediscovering ourselves.
rediscovering ourselves. I love that phrase. I think that was a very insightful conversation. Actually, I need to think over it to bring all my insights.
I had a lot of fun discussing this.
Well, I hope this transition to more human happens quite fast and we become more human. We become more, we exist more rather than doing something.
Mhm.
We simply exist and acknowledge our emotions more, acknowledge our body more, acknowledge our mind more rather than working on stuff. Thank you very much for this beautiful conversation, Hannah.
Thank you, Ozan.
Always lovely to speak. Have a nice day.
You too. And yes, everyone out there listening to us, have a nice day.
Thank you for bearing with us. Bye.
Bye bye.